Hi again, you lovely, lovely lot. Back again for some witchy writing wisdom today, you lucky, lucky buggers. That or you're bored and have nothing better to do. Either way, hello. As you'll probably know by now, I'm Willow, paranormal romance author, witch, medium, avid reader and cat slave. A few people have asked me to put together a video on the mistakes that you might make as a novice writer and how to either avoid them or learn how to fix them. This is a very wide topic and it's far too much to cover in one video, so what I'm going to do is actually record the whole lot today and just split it up into a series of videos, and I'm going to post one each day until the whole series has finished. Making these mistakes can immediately give you away as an amateur writer, and even if you aren't, they can make you seem like you are. We could have been writing for the best part of our lives, but if you've never learnt the basics, then you'll never improve past novice. Harsh, but unfortunately it's true. These are a basic kind of guide to what to avoid and what not to do. This is coming from bitter experience, writing class lessons, the opinions of other writers that I've spoken to while asking about this video and asking them what to include on the list. Readers themselves have told us that these are the sort of things that they notice about some writers and think that it feels quite amateurish, and basically a shit ton of practice from pretty much everybody that I've spoken to and myself. This whole list, pretty much all of it I've done myself at some point, and these are mistakes that I've made, so hopefully you don't have to. How much do you love me now? The answer better be a lot, because I've put a shit ton of work into finding these bad boys out for you. This first video, it will focus on what to avoid in your story construction and what can actually be seen as amateurish. So let's dive in, shall we? Our first point is a bad story concept. This sounds so obvious, doesn't it? But for some, it's not. If you think your story through, if you follow a story formula to make sure that you have all the elements that you need and you plot it properly, then this will be a massive help to your story construction. What can also help is joining writing classes or writing group, and if you can't get to one physically, then online forums and groups can be just as good. It's a way of getting a lot of feedback for the stuff that you're doing and a way of actually talking to others and asking them some questions. There you'll be able to get a lot of, like I said, feedback if you actually pitch an idea for your story. Believe me, these people will question things and they will make you think about it. They'll likely pick up on things and question things that you hadn't even thought of. So their advice, their critique and their wisdom is pretty much invaluable. Of course, you're going to get some people that are a little bit of a dick, but you know, you get that in every walk of life, so you just kind of have to deal with it. If you don't want to do that though, then getting it checked by a beta reader can make all of the difference. Some new writers seem to think that they have to go it alone like the entire time, that they can't ask for or accept help when it's needed or when it's offered. They will self-edit everything and they'll review everything before publishing it, and then they'll wonder why they're getting negative reviews. The lack of help shows. I've been just as guilty of this myself in the early days. We've all been there. I thought that no one else would know and love my world as much as I did, and therefore no one could be of any help. I was so wrong. Help is always a good thing, and even the best, most successful writers will still have trusted beta readers that they show their work to. This moves us on to plot holes. Yet again, this is a problem that can be fixed with careful planning rather than trying to just write out a plan, and then with careful editing and observation afterwards. Poor cause and effect is just as bad as a plot hole. Your reader knows that stepping out in front of a car will hurt. It will cause damage and it will possibly kill you. Readers are not stupid, they know these things. But if your character walks away without a scratch, it's going to jar with your reader. Just because you need that car to hit somebody to show who the bad guy is, you still need to keep things realistic. If your character shoots and kills someone, research what the lawful procedure would be. what will be their punishment, and what's going to be the comeback in the country that your story's set in. If your character breaks into a house and gets caught, what would happen in a real life situation in the place that your story's set in? All of this might seem like it could be skipped because, hey, it's fiction. No, wrong. Just because it's fiction doesn't mean that anything can happen, that things have to feel realistic. You have to have an element of truth in them, or the reader will not gel with the story. They're just going to think, this is too far-fetched, this is crap. I can't relate to this because it doesn't feel real enough to me. Even a fantasy set in somewhere where you've got dragons and wizards and fairies, you still have to have realistic characters. You still have to have characters that your readers can relate to, and a lot of the time see themselves in the role of that character. If they can't do that, then they're not going to gel with them and they're not going to finish the story. It's going to be crap. They're not going to like it. Random story elements will also confuse your reader and lead them down a path that you might never have wanted them, so that by the end of it they feel cheated out of a potential plot point that they actually found quite interesting and enticing. Because, you know, just because you have an idea for a funny or a quirky or even a poignant scene, it doesn't mean that you have to use it if it doesn't make narrative sense. It's a major thing. Everything in your story should make narrative sense. It should all fit and have a reason for being. This brings me to my next point, which is overly confusing plot. Inexperienced writers often think that they have to try and impress their readers and just make this impression, which to a certain extent that is true, but they go about it the wrong way. Trying to be too clever or too complicated, it will always backfire. I've read so many of these where I thought this could be brilliant if it was just simplified just a tiny bit, you know. Having a large convoluted and detailed plot can put a lot of readers off, and it can be really hard to actually write successfully, you know. Having 6 red herrings, 3 turncoats, 10 hidden clues, 5 points of misdirection and 4 plot twists all in one story will make for an exhausting and hard to follow plot that most will either give up on without finishing, or they're going to feel confused and unsatisfied by the end. And you do not want that. That is not what we want. Don't try to be too clever. Do not try and baffle your reader with bullshit. You want them to relate and engage, not feel like they don't know what 2 + 2 is by the end of your book. Because it's so frustrating as a reader, you know, to not be able to follow what's going on in the page in front of you. You might want to follow it, but you just mentally can't because it's so confusing, and it just doesn't work. As with anything, there are extremes, and while being too complicated is bad, so is being too simplistic and vague. Some writers drift towards vague writing as a way of creating mystery and surprises within their story, but in reality this rarely works. Unneeded scenes are also a big problem with novice writers. They seem to think that the more there is, the better it is, which is not always the case. Don't get hung up on word count. By trying to bulk up your story, you can often do more harm than good. It might seem cute or easy to add an extra scene with your main character's dog doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but it's going to be recognised for what it is, and that's filler. It is just filler within your story, and your readers are going to notice this. Okay, right, say it with me. If nothing actually happens in a scene, if it doesn't add to character development or it doesn't push the plot along, it does not belong in our book. Simple as that. Now, I'm not a total monster. I know these kind of scenes can creep in, and you'll love them, but they might need cutting. As my writing tutor used to say, murder your darlings. But notice my word choice there. Cutting, not deleting. Nowhere is it against the rules to add a scene at the back of the book as a deleted scene like they do with a movie or a DVD, or to put it in a blog post or your website. Your scene doesn't have to die. It just needs to get its arse out your story. Under these rules, you can include big scenes that are masquerading as really important, but focus on more what's not happening rather than what is happening. For example, you've got 5 people in an office having a meeting. They spend 4 pages of back and forth dialogue discussing possible problems, chatting about how, no, Gerald didn't place that order, no, that big client didn't cancel the contract, blah, blah, blah. It's all filler and there's no real information for the readers, so it's not needed. So if you want to have a meeting, that's cool, but have a meeting to discuss a problem that is actually happening or has happened, one that does actually affect the story, not what might happen. So keep it current, keep it relevant. Our last problem relates to the ending. As I've said many times, your ending must be satisfying to the reader. If your ending seems too easy, too obvious, or very short and rushed, your readers will know, and they will not like it. Weak endings weaken your entire story. So that's it for book structure mistakes. Okay, that's it for book structure mistakes. Thanks for watching. Tune in again tomorrow for the next part of the series where we're going to be focusing on problems with characters. As always, hit me up on social media with any questions, suggestions for videos or anything like that, anything you want to know, or even books that you might like me to read and review. I'm a little bit more active on Twitter than I am anywhere else, but you can still always get me on Facebook, Instagram, or right here on YouTube. So until then, blessed be and happy writing.